If you look at the coaches heading into the 2026 World Cup, something quietly interesting is happening. The men with the best shots at lifting that trophy aren't the young tactical geniuses with their laptops open, and they're not the old-school dinosaurs barking from the dugout. They're a specific, almost accidental generation, and most people haven't noticed yet. So this video is about why Gen X coaches are positioned to dominate the 2026 World Cup, and why that's not a coincidence. Most people assume coaching success is about tactics or squad quality, and sure, those matter. But there's a deeper psychological reason this particular generation keeps winning when it counts. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. I've gone through 6 specific traits that explain the pattern, and by the end of this, the tournament is going to look completely different to you. Let's start with the one that surprises people the most. Pochettino, Tuchel, Deschamps, Scaloni, all of them grew up before GPS vests, before XG models, before analytics departments had more staff than the physio room. They learned football the old way. Thousands of hours of watching, playing, arguing about the game, with no spreadsheet to settle it. And what that does to your brain is genuinely different. It builds deep, intuitive pattern recognition, the kind where you see a game shift before you can explain why. The psychological edge here is that when the data says one thing and their gut says another, they're comfortable trusting the gut. Because their gut was trained the hard way over decades. A lot of the younger data-native coaches can't do that. They'll override their instincts for the model, and in a World Cup knockout game where the margins are razor thin, that hesitation costs you. Gen X coaches use analytics as a tool, they just don't need it to think. But the tactical intuition is only part of it, because there's something in how this generation was actually raised that matters even more on a touchline. Gen X is the latchkey generation. They came home to empty houses, figured things out alone, and basically raised themselves through a stretch of history that wasn't exactly warm and supportive. And what that does, psychologically, is install an almost unshakable comfort with uncertainty. When there's no clear answer, no obvious call, when the game is in the balance and the staff is looking at you, the Gen X coach backs his own red. While others freeze or defer, he decides. That's not a skill you can teach in a coaching course. It was installed at age 9 with a key around the neck. And in football, matches are almost always decided in exactly those moments, the ones where someone has to act and no one wants to be wrong. That said, being decisive means nothing if your players don't actually follow you. And this is where it gets genuinely interesting. Gen X coaches sit in this fascinating middle space between the old authoritarian boomer managers who ruled by fear and the younger coaches who want to be their players' friends. The Gen X approach is something different, firm but genuinely cool. They'll put an arm around you and drop you from the squad without flinching, and somehow you still respect them for it. Here's the psychological reason that works so well right now. Today's players grew up with softer, more validating environments, and a calm authority figure who sets real boundaries is something they're quietly starving for. Pochettino's entire reputation is built on this. Players run through walls for him, not because he's nice to them, but because he's honest with them and he holds the line. That combination is rarer than it sounds, and in a tournament where squad unity can be the difference between a quarterfinal exit and a final, it matters enormously. Now, if you're finding this interesting, there's a related video on how modern football management has changed that I think you genuinely enjoy. It's linked at the end. And if you want more of this kind of breakdown before the tournament, subscribing means you won't miss it. But let's keep going, because the next 2 points are the ones I think are most underrated. One of the strangest advantages Gen X coaches have in 2026 is that they grew up with zero social media, and now they're managing Gen Z players whose self-worth is genuinely tied to likes and online validation. Because the coaches stand completely outside that world, they can see what it does to players with a clarity that a younger coach, who's also partly caught in the same system, simply can't. They can protect their squads from the noise, from the criticism cycles, from the dopamine spiral that derails form and focus. The players often don't even know they need that buffer. But the coaches who grew up reading the room instead of reading a feed, they see it immediately. And then there's the pressure piece, which ties everything together. Gen X is the forgotten middle child of generations, squeezed between boomers and millennials, chronically underestimated, used to being overlooked. And what that breeds is a thick skin and a quiet chip on the shoulder that is almost impossible to rattle. Deschamps has been doubted his entire career despite winning a World Cup. It has never once moved him. That psychological resilience, the ability to absorb doubt and not let it change your decisions, is exactly what survives a World Cup pressure cooker, where the media, the fans, and the noise all peak at the same time. And underneath all of it is a pragmatism that this generation earned the hard way. They came of age through recessions and cynicism and a world that didn't hand anyone anything pretty. So they don't manage for beautiful football. They manage for results. Deschamps wins ugly. Scaloni changes his system game to game. None of them are married to a romantic ideal. In knockout football, where one bad night sends you home, the pragmatic, survival-first mind beats the idealist almost every time. So here's where we've landed. At the start of this, the 2026 World Cup probably looked like a wide-open tournament. Now it looks like something else. A tournament quietly shaped by a generation that learned football by feel, raised themselves through uncertainty, and spent decades being underestimated. The coaches who fit that profile aren't just competitive. They're built for exactly this kind of pressure. Drop your prediction in the comments. Which Gen X coach lifts the trophy and why? I genuinely want to read them.